After G1, gun laws in America got a lot stricter, and it wasn't viable to make Megatron a gun anymore. The closest Hasbro has gotten to an actual gun since then is the Legends class version, which still needed an awkward orange cap on it despite its size, and the nerfed version. Get it? Nerfed? It's because it's a Nerf gun? So, the solution? Make him a tank! Over the years there's been quite a few Tankatrons, and they've either gone with the green camo as a reference to G2, or the classic silver and red. Or Arc Force. This Mega Tank goes with the silver version, and my god, it's good to have a leader class figure again. Yeah, my Optimus Prime and Jetfire from Revenge of the Fallen both broke thanks to my childhood carelessness. And double points for this figure because I've never had a Megs in this colour scheme before. The sheer shine on this thing just brings out so much good surface detail, which there is a lot of. Quite a bit of it looks like it would benefit from the Gundam marker, but I think that would just take away from the shine power. Boy, am I glad they didn't go with chrome on this thing. I mean, sure, it wouldn't have been cost effective in the first place, but even if they had done it, it would have completely ruined the detail. Screw that, I'm fine with silver. Also, I like the small uses of red here and there. Most of it's just exposed hinges and stuff, but it's done so well that it gives him so much character. Top it off with a tiny painted window section and you've got yourself a killer tank mode. Unless you look at it from the back. It looks pretty poor with the turret in its full forward position, and then it looks even worse when you move the turret out of the way. A panel here is the only thing I can really ask from this mode. Oh wait, the turret rotates. This isn't the first tank former that utilizes a functioning turret, and not even the first Mega Tank former to do it either. But there's just been so many that don't do this, so it's nice to have a feature anyway. Although the cannon doesn't rotate up and down, it does fire a pretty good spring-loaded missile. Amidst all the friction fire on toys lately, this is a nice feature. The penultimate feature of this toy is functioning treads. He gets away with it by having 4 in total, so as not to have to separate them in robot mode. This would have worked a lot better though if the wheels were a tad looser, or maybe the treads themselves. You really have to press down on the treads to make it work properly. Still, I'm glad they did it instead of giving us fake treads, which is something pretty much every tank form in the history of forever has done. Has there been another one with functioning treads? Comment if you know, I mean I'm sure there has been, but I can't remember. The final feature, carried over from his wave mate Armada Megatron, is the Minicon ports. It's a nice touch, even though it doesn't really relate to him as much. The one on the top works fine, but the rest seem way too tight on my copy. Still, whatever, I'm not complaining. Oh, I almost forgot, Megatron comes with 2 weapons. Are they redundant? Yeah. Do they look bad stored in vehicle mode though? Hell no. They actually add something to the vehicle, which is something you can't really say for a lot of vehicle weapons. Oh, and as an added bonus, you can fold up these bits and pretend they're missile launchers. There's nothing in there, but hey, I like to do it. For a size comparison, he's a lot smaller than expected. Don't take my judgment on this, as I haven't had a leader class in at least 5 years. Oh, and see this epic monster truck right here? Well, in good time I shall review him. Just when the trailer gets here. The transformation's a bit of a mixed bag. On one hand, it's deluxe class simple, but on the other hand, the engineering's so solid and the pieces are all so chunky that I can't seem to fault it. On one hand, everything above the waist works so well in an awesome turntable integration, but on the other hand, the legs are so annoying because you have to half transform them, then flip up the crotch piece, and then do the rest. I mean, even complex guys like Evilistar don't do that. It's just, this goes there, that goes there. No half steps. There's a lot of good and bad here, but in the end he turns into a killer robot. Despite having tank treads on his legs and at the back, this is undeniably G1 Megatron. They hit the nail on the head through the chest plate and, well, the head. The head sculpt is the most Megatron-esque I've seen in years, and although I'm fine with the spikiness from Prime in the movieverse and animated, it's just so nice to see a mean helmeted murder lord head return to toy form. It really makes the Universe Deluxe figure look lame indeed. And in spite of his backpack, which by the way is the only chunk of non-integrated kibble, and that is actually quite awesome, he has some gorgeous light piping. It's not really light per se, but it is ruby red and bloody. And I mean actual bloody, not derogatory bloody. The colours on this thing are so epic. Red is used quite a bit up top, which actually makes this thing better than the Takara version. I'm glad I went the extra kilometer to search for this guy, and I mean that figuratively, it's not actually then again, it's technically... Look, metric system is better. It's just so much better than the silver overload on the Takara version. If I had to put my finger on one point where the red works best, it's the sleeves. Somehow that makes it so much better than Takara. Wait, what was that for? Oh, right, you're not Hasbro, are you? On the topic of arms, take a look at that fusion cannon. Although it's a little awkwardly placed, it looks awesome. Sadly, you do have to turn it around to access the missile function, but honestly, I don't really go pew pew bang bang with my toys that much. Although when you do actually start to use the arms, the issues become apparent. Simply put, why do his shoulders hurt? Maybe because they're dislocated due to the turret transformation? If they added an extra piece to move it up, it could have been much better. There's a Shapeways kit out there, but it nullifies the turret rotation, and that was such a cool thing on this. It could have been so much better if they just engineered it a bit more. The outward shoulder movement isn't very good either, creating a huge gap. Once again, this could have been solved easily. Before I get into the other articulation problems, I'll handle the good stuff up top. The head is on a swivel and a hinge like many Masterpiece figures, and as I said earlier, the shoulders suck. He has a 90-degree ratcheted elbow and a bicep swivel. He also has a wrist swivel and a waist joint. From there, things get a little more sketchy though. The upper legs are fine, with huge clicking ratchets on both forward and outward motion and an epic thigh swivel. But then you get to the knees, which don't even have 45 degrees on them. See, this is why you put the treads on the side of the legs. The feet, though, are far worse. They have nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're not even sculpted with a slope on them, so you'll either have to stand him in this slightly posed version or stock still. Posing him is really difficult thanks to this. Well, at least combining his guns actually works for once, unlike so many other examples. Far more redundant here, but at least it works.
This is incredibly stupid and I regret doing it. I think this looks a lot better if it's in his hand. I'm gonna have to do a full review on this. I think some things need to be said about the quality of these miniguns. They are fun to me, but they are very flawed and I must review them! Floppy, 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 and now it falls. Great!
For a size comparison, he's a good size for a leader. And for once, the term leader isn't just a size class thing. So how does this figure turn out? Well, the tank mode's fantastic, and the robot mode looks great. It's just a shame about the poor articulation. Still, he earns at least 4 stars. If he had a better design, it would easily be 5. And I'd still recommend picking him up despite his flaws. Still, I do wonder what the other version of the mold would have ended up like. Yeah, let me just get back onto my friend here for a sec.
It is a curious thing that leader Armada Megatron has been warming shelves ever since it was released, and they can be found on discount in places like Amazon and other online retailers because nobody is buying them. Because there is hardly any difference between the G1 version of leader Megatron and the Armada version of Megatron. The only difference in the molding is the head sculpt. And that seems to have made all the difference because people just can't seem to get around this weird scarab beetle thingy on top of his head. It looked horribly ugly back in the day, and the remake doesn't make it look any better. This head is just awful. If I had 2 versions of the G1 Megatron, I would pop this one off and put the G1 head on in its place. And that would make it pretty much perfect. In robot mode, Armada Megatron shares the same articulation and features which were demonstrated by DrLockdown. He has this pistol accessory which splits apart into 2 other pistol accessories, which can plug into any one of a number of peg holes on this figure to further arm and accessorize him. In fact, this mold has been nicknamed Megatron because it has a number of pegs all over its body. The many pegs and peg holes are designed to go with other little figures from the Combiner Wars line, including their Target Masters, so he can carry this camera around. I'm Paparazzi Megatron. Armada Megatron shares the same transformation, which will be demonstrated by DrLockdown. The only difference is that you have to be careful with the head sculpt to make sure that you don't snap the antenna off when you're trying to rotate it and tuck it out of the way. Yeah, I'd look angry too if my face was sticking out from the bottom of a tank. Oh, what's that, ladies? You think my tank barrel is small? Well, what do you think of me now? Armada Megatron's unpopularity is even more confusing when you have him in tank mode, because the color scheme and the detailing is set off much better with camo military green as opposed to the silver that was used for the Generation 1 version. All of the things that were right with the Generation 1 version of Megatron are right with Armada Megatron, except nobody is buying him. Go figure. Armada Megatron has a number of pegs and peg holes which are compatible with other figures from the Combiner Wars line, so you can accessorize him up the wazoo if the weaponry that he has is simply not enough for you.
Ah, shell forming, eh? Well, that's certainly the truth. Although honestly, no one wants G1 Megatron here either, although he did go first. No one wants expensive toys in Australia anymore, with the presence of apps on iTunes and all the gaming community. Oh well, more for me. According to this footage, I'd say he's on par with the G1 version. While he loses in the head sculpt, he makes up for it in detail in the tank mode. Also, the minicon functionality works a bit better for him, and if you can't find him, the Armada version works fine. Yes, even more so than the Takara one. Don't buy that. In the end, I've already said the result for G1 Combiner Wars Megatron, and sort of you can use the same result for Armada, although I don't actually own it, so I can't give it a proper score. It's just an estimate. Don't skip out on one of these versions though, unless it's Takara. Skip it. Next time we dive into the deluxe class of Combiner Wars. I've had a bone to pick with one other tank former of the line for quite some time, and trust me, he's about as bad as you've thought. This is gonna be harsh.
Hey Megatron, thank you.
Expecting Megatron? Well, nope, it's April Fool's Day, so instead I'm going to review paper. Paper is very good for writing stuff on. Almost everyone has this. It has millions of points of articulation due to its bendability. You can also draw transformers on it, and to transform it, all you have to do is... Wait a second, let me just get that. Hello?
Are you serious? Are you really going to do an April Fool's joke that's stupid? It's not very funny.
Oh, what do you mean it's not very funny?
Are you retarded? I mean exactly what I said.
But I put a lot of effort into this sketch. You can't just say I can't do it. Who the hell are you anyway? In fact, I don't know you. Why do you sound like you're an MLG voice?
Yes, I can. Because I am the Swag Master 6969. People want to see you do a regular review. Nobody's going to fall for it.
I mean, seriously, what would you have in mind if you wanted me to do something else instead?
That's quite simple. Something along the lines of this.
No, 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 no.